today to some folk. Good afternoon. I'm Tim Olson, and welcome to the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This is the program where we do two primary objectives. Number one, we educate, equip, and empower emerging leaders with God-thought leadership. And we also present current events and newsmakers in the light of biblical best practices, or as I like to say, best practices from the Bible. And today is no exception to what we're going to do. I'm reflecting today on the final chapter of Exodus 40, and how it points to our own final chapters of running away from God's plans and our first steps toward running with God's plans. I think that's very, very key for us. Okay. Today's inspiration comes from Exodus 40, the final chapter in the book of Exodus, a book that not only is just about deliverance, but is also about emerging leadership by design. Throughout this last chapter, there is a refrain that says, "And the Lord commanded Moses." And the Lord commanded Moses. This phrase repeats over and over again, some 6 times to be exact. And the Lord commanded Moses. That's not redundancy, folks. That's reinforcement. It's a leadership blueprint. Moses spent his first 12 years grounded in the Hebrew faith at home, followed then by 28 years in Pharaoh's palace, more than twice as long with Pharaoh as he was with his Hebrew parents. But those first 12 years with his parents, they were foundational. They were the launch pad. That's what made him what he was. In my own life, I see the same Moses pattern. I had faith-based parenting and a home life, had faith-based schooling, and I also had a weekly, almost bi-weekly, tri-weekly church life. Now, those 3 braided cords, the home, the church, and the school, those 3 braided cords, according to the Bible, that's what grounded me, even when I tried to cut it and escape from it. That was my grounding. And like Moses, I strayed. I spent decades in Pharaoh's court, trying to outmaneuver a calling that I didn't feel worthy of. Like Moses, I questioned my readiness. I questioned my resume. And yes, I even developed my own stuttering. Not stuttering with speech, but a stuttering with my calling. Stuttering with my calling. But God had been preparing me all along, just like you. God had been preparing me all along. I went into my wilderness, the wilderness of the media. I went into the wilderness of higher education, and I went into the wilderness of corporate and nonprofit boardrooms in America. I chased titles, chased projects, and I chased good ideas until God stripped me of all of those previous options, stripped them all away. And that's when I understood that good ideas are not always God ideas. Good ideas, my ideas, were limited by a limited me, but God ideas are limited by him, and God is limitless. Leadership expert Dr. John C. Maxwell teaches us that every moral leader must go through a wilderness experience. Why? Because in the wilderness, 3 things happen in particular. Your motives get purified, your backbone gets solidified, and your calling gets clarified. Wow, I love that. Let me say that again. What happens in the wilderness, according to Dr. John Maxwell, leadership expert, 3 things happen. Every moral leader must go through a wilderness experience. It is in that wilderness experience that 3 things happen. Your motives get purified, your backbone gets solidified, and your calling gets clarified. Now, As another reference, in his book Visioneering, Andy Stanley called Moses' wilderness experience the University of the Sinai. He said Moses didn't get a degree there in 4 years. No, he spent 40 years, 10 years as a freshman, 10 years as a sophomore, 10 years as a junior, and 10 years as a senior. There were no spring breaks, no fall breaks, no summer vacations. That's when and where Moses learned several things. As we later see in the Exodus story, he learned land conservation, he learned damage control, he learned conflict resolution, he learned strategic planning, he learned patience, forbearance, listening skills, and humility. I've been there in my own wilderness university too, in customer service, on college campuses, backstage of special events, and in corporate and nonprofit boardrooms. And now I see that wasn't wasted time. That was wilderness preparation. It was not wasted time for me or for you. Call it wilderness preparation. Moses stuttered, and I instead hesitated, not in speech, but in God confidence. In clarity, even that was not a disqualifier. Hear me now. I mean, President Joe Biden also stuttered, and he led the free world. So what's my point? So when God called Moses, he didn't choose perfection. In choosing Moses, God chose obedience. Obedience. And here's my revelation from my wilderness university experience. My addiction to my ego, egoholism, as I call it, was never meant to shame me. Instead, it was meant to shape me. Never meant to shame me, but to shape me. Egoholism isn't something you erase. It's something that you manage, like a front lawn, like a cancer. It's a daily discipline. And when we get to Exodus 40, we can see that Moses was not just winging it like he did when he killed that Egyptian overlord. He was not improvising. He's executing the plan exactly as God commanded. And that was the blueprint. So do you want deliverance? Follow the divine details. You want leadership transformation? Start with obedience. I'm stepping into my calling of becoming what I call Moses 2.0 in miniature, not to lead nations, but to help emerging leaders manage their egos, starting with my own ego. I invite you to do the same with your own. This was not an easy thing for me. It's not been an easy thing, but it's a necessary thing, the wilderness experience. So what is your wilderness experience? What are you still there? Either if we're not in our wilderness, we're either going into our wilderness or coming out of our wilderness. So what is your experience? Share, DM me, share it with me. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This has been the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This is where we intentionally make emerging leaders with God thought leadership. Thank you. And we'll see you later. Look to see you later on. Thanks for joining us.